So
This is Max Ventilla. I pronounced your last name correct. You're the CEO, co-founder of Aardvark. Also have Damon Horowitz. You're the CTO and co-founder. And you're showing us the new Twitter integration.
That's right.
Okay.
And so we are excited to basically allow people to interact with Aardvark over Twitter the same way that they would over IM or email or any other channel that they're currently using to interact with their network. This is my Twitter, and let's imagine that...
you only have 677 followers.
I know, but I haven't been at it too long, so...
Yeah, okay.
So
you need to do a little more Twitter spamming.
Right, would be to say, what's going on in SF this weekend?
And normally you'd be typing this into your instant messenger or directly on the Aardvark site, wherever you normally use Aardvark.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'd like to do something outdoors, music, and
are you using a hashtag or okay?
You can. So you could put in sort of like concerts, or if you don't, Aardvark will still pick out from that question about what's going on.
Really, just because they know you're a user?
That's right. So essentially what's happened now is, let's imagine that I send this into Aardvark.
You actually are just sending it to Twitter.
This is a regular Twitter.
Yeah.
So this is like what I might do now. I might ask like all of my Twitter followers what's happening. What you can do now is you can either send a direct message to Vark.
So Aardvark isn't aware of it yet.
That's right. Either you can send a direct message to Vark, or what you could do is you could take your normal Twitter message and just put somewhere in the message at Vark.
Okay.
And then essentially that clues in Aardvark the same way as if you sent that message to anyone else, that it should be paying attention to it. And it'll pick it out of my Twitter stream, and it'll do what it normally does.
It'll pick out the original Twitter? In other words, if people start responding to your original Twitter that had no @Vark at it, Aardvark will see it?
It would not. Okay. So we want people to be intentional about wanting Aardvark to answer their message. There's some instances where you don't particularly want that to go out to your network. But the idea is that if you want to just sort of, in addition to have Aardvark answering the question, then you put an @ message, with the @Vark syntax. And if you want it just to go to Aardvark and for it to answer the same way as it would if you sent it over IM or email, then you send a direct message. And in either case, as the answers come back, they'll get direct message to me. So let me show you. So earlier today, I asked, what's going on in New York on a certain weekend when I'm going to be there. Sort of other questions that I asked about Twitter. Let me go to this.
So these are all questions you asked
over Twitter.
And if somebody responds, Aardvark picks that up.
That's right. So here's an example. I said, on Twitter, do the trending topics ever feature an @handle? Now I see our terms, and tags Twitter, and here you see answers coming from different people. Many of these are sort of people that I have friends in common with. Here's another one. And then you have the ability on the transcript page to go and either thank the person or send a follow-up message to them, or to tell Aardvark whether or not the answer that they came back with was particularly helpful to you.
So any reply is pulled in?
Replies that come through the Aardvark system are all pulled together on the transcript page.
Does that mean people have to have the @Vark in their reply as well?
No, so these are actually people that have answered over IM or email or anything else. So the nice thing is we're using it the same as we would any other communication channel. When a question comes in, you can interact with someone no matter what IM network they're on, or if they're on a mobile device or anything else. So,
but if somebody responds on Twitter, you're not picking that up at all.
That's right. So presently, we're not pulling in the normal @replies you get from your actual followers. You're already going to be getting those in whatever Twitter client you're using, and in the same way that if you didn't ask a question through Aardvark as of yet, we're only pulling together the answers that you got through the system.
Okay.
And then similarly, you get the same benefit that when you sign up for Aardvark and you sync with Twitter, it's using that same social graph that you've aggregated from either your web email client, like Gmail or Yahoo Mail or MSN Mail or Facebook.
How do you sync with Twitter when you sign up for Aardvark?
So right now, you'll go to a profile page, and there's just a Twitter tab that's right there, and you'll basically put in your username and password through the Twitter site. So we don't actually we get authorization from Twitter to be synced with your account, and then you'll be able to basically see on this page how exactly the system works and what you can do with it.
Okay, and what are you importing from Twitter? The people you follow, the people that follow you, mutual follows?
So that's one of the things that we'll integrate with in terms of, so that's the actual answer coming back. I just have it synced so that it gets direct message.
Oh, that's your phone.
To my phone as well. But right now, we're not using the Twitter social graph as something for routing, but certainly, if it seems like people want that, and it seems like those mutual follow connections sort of transfer to the friending model that we have, then we'll look at
it. So that's a future feature.
That's right.
Right now it's just wow. Let's see what's going on the phone.
Yeah. Let's see if you got these in. Yeah, you got these direct messages here.
Let's see.
For sure.
So this is the question he just asked on Twitter.
That's the question he just asked on Twitter. And Aardvark direct messages a response to let him know that Aardvark got the question, and it's going to try to find the answer.
Oh, so no answers yet. That's just...
That was the first one.
Well, no, but there actually are... I got 3 answers in the first 4 minutes.
So let's see what we got up here.
Wow, that's a lot going on there.
Let's try this one. So here we go. Here's an example of an answer. So what's coming in is Eric, to be a friend of a friend, is pointing him to a URL where he can go onto the website and kind of have a longer interactive kind of conversation with Eric about what's going on.
Who's Eric? One of the people that answered the question.
Yeah, so that'll be somebody in Max's extended social network on Aardvark. So a Facebook friend, a friend, or somebody with a common affiliation, like somebody else from Google, somebody else from Yahoo,
right.
whatever.
And here you see, I got, after 3 minutes, an answer coming back from Jason Young with a number of mutual friends. There's a pretty great concert at the Greek Theater in Berkeley on Saturday with Death Cab, Andrew Bird, and Rara Riot. Outdoors, just 10-minute walk from downtown Berkeley Station. It's actually a concert that I'm going to this weekend. So really good recommendation. And you can again sort of rate the answer. You have a link there to the person's Facebook profile, so you can actually go there and see a little more.
We're in regular Aardvark functionality now.
That's right.
Yeah, and how is the Facebook integration going that you did last week? You've seen a lot of signups through Facebook.
Yeah. Well, what's been really neat about the Facebook side is we wanted to, since we got past the beta period and users were really happy with the service, we wanted to open it up more. But we're also wary of just
you need a social graph attached to it.
You need some kind of social graph attached because it's about your network. That's a real differentiator from just public service. So we turn it on, but we want to meet people with kind of the chicken egg problem that some people might have in terms of getting your social graph on. But we just let people sign up, and it turns out that for the average user joining, they have an average of 6 friends of friends already on Aardvark. So that even when you come in right away, when you connect to Facebook and other people have their Facebook profiles, there's already some overlap.
Is that as deep as you generally go as friends of friends, or do you go deeper if there's a direct match on a keyword?
Yeah, we'll go deeper than that if we need to, especially if we've moved past the people that are close to you, go to friends of friends and friends and so forth to find something that's an exact hit.
Do you ask people when they ask a question at some point, do you say, hey, were you sort of satisfied with this, the next day or in an hour or two?
Well, so one thing you saw there is we do get feedback on the answer pages,
right.
So people are able to, rate for them how good of a match Aardvark made.
Yeah.
In addition, we do sort of constant user research. So one of the things that has really driven us from the beginning is how are people using the product? How can we make the product better?
Yeah.
And initially, that meant, Aardvark was like the 6th idea in this space, and it was only after months and months of prototyping things that we sort of integrated those early learnings into something that we actually wanted to do long term. Mm-hmm. And then since, we ran for about 6 months with Aardvark essentially being simulated. There were human beings on the back end doing all the routing, doing all the conversation.
We talked about this last year.
To sort of see what did people want to do with this kind of service. And now whenever we sort of propose a new feature or try something out, it's extensively user tested. There's actually a community page on the website that pretty cool. It's using user voice. We built a forum where people can essentially say the things that they would like to see from Aardvark, and different people can vote on it and comment on it, and you can see sort of everything on the first couple pages is actually stuff that we're planning and building already, and the feedback from people is very, very high in terms of when they ask a question, are they getting quality answer quickly from someone in their network, delivered sort of over the communication channel that they naturally are using throughout the day, so they don't have to go back to some third-party website, sort of see what came back. Anecdotally, it's about a third and a third and a third. Third is like fantastic experiences, third quality experiences, and then a third where either the answer came back slower or there wasn't the number of answers, and it's just a constant iteration and improvement on bringing up all of those numbers.
Yeah.
And
Are you really focused on new features being driven by the community?
Yeah, we are. I mean, we've done that Wizard of Oz testing is for real. I mean, I come from an AI background, and the way it usually works is you have your algorithm and you push it out there and you try to like users like the algorithm or they don't. But here, we built the algorithm around the exact experience that users wanted. So we were doing all sorts of iteration, and that continues today. Every week we have in-person interviews with both users of the product. New users, we kind of walk them through the sign-up flow, see what they think. People who haven't seen it yet. We get a flood of mail straight to our feedback address. And then also, we have this community forum. Every week, we gather together and aggregate all the thoughts we have, and we have something internally at the company we call weekly learnings, where the whole company sits there and we go through, all right, here's what we learned this week from our users. We have our vision for how we're going to, take over the world, but here's what our users told us. And that's what feeds into our actual prioritization.
How many questions have now been asked on Aardvark?
A lot.
What kind of metrics do you get? Yeah, total users, total questions asked.
Yes.
Throw some interesting. Or how many per week now? Per day? You're not going to answer any of those?
Yeah, we're keeping the specific numbers under wraps for a little while. What we are doing, though, is focusing on kind of, here's what you can expect when you join. So right now, the majority of questions are answered in under 5 minutes, which is a huge thing for us. There are roughly 250,000 topics represented in terms of what people who join to that and are willing to answer questions about. We show little teaser stats through the status message sometimes because our community is really interested in how the product is doing. So sometimes we'll put an Aardvark status message, hey, here's how many messages were sent into Aardvark yesterday.
Okay, so what are some of those since you've thrown them out there?
Maybe yesterday was 27,000 or something. I mean, so
27,000 what?
Tens of thousands
tens
of interactions that people are having through the system.
Yeah. So
and that's growing.
Certainly is.
You guys are a fairly secretive company, so there's never. I mean, I had to pull teeth to get you to admit to your funding last year.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I mean, I think that
you were running away from me.
Our idea is that this takes a long time. It takes a long time to figure out what you should be building.
That might be perfect for your business. It's just not good for mine.
Well, I'm just saying that whenever you sort of go out and you put numbers, you say, hey, start benchmarking me today. Like, see how much I improve tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And in fact, a lot of our focus, was on quality and
perfecting the user experience
for over a year. I mean, the thing that really kept us back from doing open signups was not the fact that the virality wasn't there. It was much more that we wanted people to come in and actually stay and have, even if 1/10 of the people stay, for most startups, they say, that's great. That's what I want to be doing. Forget about the rest. For us, we really want, to hook you. That first experience that you have as an asker and answer, we view it incredibly negatively if 10%, 20%, 30% of the users die out. That's something that causes us to go back and really reflect on why they're leaving and what we can do different.
When's your iPhone app launching?
So we've had it tested for a long time. It's been finished for a while.
Apple just won't let it.
No. It's not Apple. Apple's been incredibly helpful. It's just, again, we want to have a lot of user testing. We want to figure out, what does it take for.
So you don't want it to be live yet.
We don't. We want it to be live when we see
when it's absolutely
sort of
perfect.
Hundreds of cases, not perfect, but when we feel like in order to learn more, we need orders of magnitude more usage. So we went for a long time with sort of thousands of users, and we were learning a tremendous amount. And it was only like after 6 months, 12 months of that we said, you know what? We've sort of saturated the learning we can do at this scale. Like, we need to be an order of magnitude more, 2 orders of magnitude more, and then we'll start learning new things. Similarly, we're at a stage with the iPhone app where, with the number of testers that we have now, we're learning as much as we can possibly deal with in any given week to fix. And when we sort of get to the end of that, we'll say, okay, now it's ready for a wider audience.
I'd love to talk to you both for a second about this sort of product iteration by scientific method. And the idea of testing something, pulling it back, asking your readers what they want, looking, trying things out, and it's always been the Google way to do that, obviously. And some people have argued, me among them, Robert Scoble, others, that sometimes you can end up with a Volvo that way instead of a Porsche. Or the other funny one is a camel is a horse designed by committee. And that sometimes you have to really challenge your users, and like Facebook has traditionally done, outrage their users. And then 3 weeks later, those same outraged users could not live without whatever feature they were complaining about 3 weeks ago. What are your feelings on that in general, and specifically to Aardvark? Do you feel like it's important to continue this iterative process? Do you occasionally try to challenge your users? What are the plans there?
It's a great question, and this is something it's really important to us because I know a bunch of us internally, myself included, react strongly against the traditional dichotomy, like, oh, you're either one of these vision companies where you're just doing crazy stuff, or you're driven by the customers. That's really not, we don't see that as a dichotomy. Mm-hmm. And we're a vision company. We think there's tons of information on the web, and it's a fraction of what's in people's heads, and we're enabling this whole new thing. It's a paradigm, and so there's a lot that's driving us forward in terms of why I think this is worth our time to do. But that means, okay, in terms of the actual surface, in terms of what people are interacting with, your users know better than you do about what their experiences are like in the wild. So we really do them both at once. Now, in terms of how do you innovate in that type of context, one of the things that happens is we do a lot of early, it's like A/B testing and also kind of hijack testing, where there's something innovative we want to do instead of just throwing it in front of everybody. We'll first go through like a paper stage where we sanity check internally with the team, with people we bring in, users we solicit them to kind of, hey, do you want to come in and have an interview with us? We talk to them there. We also contact users who have given us feedback in related areas to see if what we're proposing is going to work with them. And then we'll actually go in and we have a test harness where we can, with individual conversations, kind of work through how features would go. What if we responded this way as opposed to that way? It's only when we've done a fair amount of this stuff and validated that the crazy idea that we have is worthwhile, that then we push it out. And we have a quick follow-up, even after we put something live, a quick follow-up with users where we interview users in different segments of our audience. We say, hey, what happened when you use this? So that's not something that's going away for us. Like, we want to continue to say, there's this vision. What would subjective search be about? What would it be like if you could tap everybody in your extended network, 40,000 people, at the same time, let our users tell us if we step a little bit too far to the right or left.
And you do have to be careful about becoming radically different things because lots of people are asking you to do that. So, the two big things for us have always been point systems and sharing content, like making all of the content explicitly public. And
you haven't done that yet.
We haven't done it.
Because that's your big win. That's where...
Well, it's something that people are constantly coming to us saying, like, hey, do this, and then it would really be great. And it's for us, fairly different from the brand. We've always positioned Aardvark to be more like a communication channel where, I'll ask you something over email. I'm asking you over email. Mm-hmm. It would be a little bit weird if my question and your answer showed up publicly on the web. Yeah. And B, if Gmail sent me back, similar conversations that other people have had in Gmail. That said, there's certainly a place for it. There's a way that you can selectively share the content. There's a way that you can give people sort of
maybe depersonalize it a little bit too.
But potentially, I mean, there is certainly a subset of the content which is less personal, or there certainly might be at scale. It's just, we haven't found the really clear way to keep doing what we want to do well and yet address sort of that comment that the users have come to us with. We keep it in the back of our mind. And
make it public, searchable.
That's right.
Indexed. Yeah. So when does that happen? You just don't know yet because you haven't quite figured out how to do it?
We're not sure that we want for it to end up that way. I mean, we try to figure out what's behind. If a user suggests a feature to us, we say, what's the urge behind that? And sometimes the urge is, well, other sites do it this way, and that's not sufficient for us to do it. Sometimes there's an urge like, well, I want to learn from the knowledge of the community. So
Aardvark. Sorry to cut you off, but you want Aardvark to start answering questions directly based on the database.
We want Aardvark to be
artificial intelligence stuff that you're so good at, right?
No, it's exact. No, we want humans to answer the questions,
Yeah.
but we want Aardvark to be better at routing them. So the database,
Just better at routing them.
the database we use to figure out who's best at answering
Yeah.
and seeing over time what happens.
But let's say that I ask for a really good restaurant recommendation in San Francisco,
Yeah.
and it turns out that a month before, one of my best friends asked the same thing on Aardvark and got these stellar answers that he marked as like they're perfect, perfect, perfect.
Yeah.
Why don't you turn back and say, hey, this is Aardvark. We think that actually you might like these restaurants. I mean, you must be thinking about that as an AI guy, right?
Well, there are two ways we look at it. I'm a recovering AI guy, and what that means is I no longer think that my machine is as intelligent as any human in terms of understanding what the other human really wants. You know, when I ask a question, I want somebody to understand me. It's the same reason when you go into a store and there's somebody there who really helps you and listens to what you need. So in this situation that you suggest, Aardvark will do two things. One, it'll go to your friend and say, hey, you know, we think you can answer Michael's question about restaurants because he just received these answers.
Yeah.
And we'll go to his answers. There is a different channel where, on the monetization angle, we're saying, hey, there's an opportunity to
bypass actual
and have
results
sponsored
with
answers, which are clearly labeled, when we think that's useful for our users. But right now, our users are getting a really good experience without any of this recycled content.
But this isn't, and sorry, I just finished watching
Yeah.
all 4 seasons of Battlestar Galactica, and so this stuff's on my mind. Have you guys seen that?
Sure.
Seen the new battle? Yeah. But I mean, if you think about it, you could just be having all these users sort of training the big Aardvark mind right now towards eventually being able to answer things intelligently.
Here's one way of looking at it.
And you just refuse to.
Well,
you don't think that's the future.
I don't think that's the future. In some ways, they're training the big Aardvark mind to learn how to tap them better.
Yeah.
In the same way that the web isn't,
Yeah.
the same as human intelligence, it has a different sort of
Yeah.
knowledge. And right now, we think of the web, it's great for all sorts of factual information and getting static content, but it's also really good for indexing the real world. And so what Aardvark does, it's using all of the stuff that people publish and saying, okay, who in the world could you have a quick
Then when
information
do you use the data? Other than just learning how to route stuff better,
Yeah.
when do you actually use the questions and the answers and make it available somehow to generate lots of page views and then add units?
Well,
So
You are going to do that someday, right?
It's not our near-term focus in that we really see the value proposition that we're providing as a live connection in the moment through whatever communication channel you're already using with someone from your network. And you can't automate certain things, right? Or a lot of the pleasure goes away if I go out on the street and I find a flyer for a restaurant. It's exactly the same content as if I stopped someone and I said, hey, I'm pretty hungry, what's a good place to get a sandwich around here? But it feels very different when a human being sort of looks me in the face and tells me this is where I'd go, and I feel like, okay, that's an actionable result.
Or looks at you on Twitter.
Or interacts with you where
But
you're
absolutely.
clearly interacting with another person. And part of it is the latency dimension. So it was very important for us to get, average answer rate down to 5 minutes, below 5 minutes. You want it to...
And is that what
You
it
want
is now?
sense-
It's below 5 minutes on average? Even last week?
Most questions are getting answered in under 5
Oh, right, you
minutes.
said that. Even last week, I'm sure you had a huge spike with
Yeah.
Facebook and people trying it because who hadn't been able to.
Well, the nice thing here is that questions aren't broadcast. So I just got 4 answers to that question I asked in, I don't know,
Yeah, but you have the interns back in the office doing that,
minutes.
right?
Well, we've never answered the questions ourselves. Even when we were very actively, processing every question, it wasn't to answer them. It was to figure out, what individual in the community would be able to provide an answer. Here you're seeing
So these are legitimate answers.
Yeah, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and the nice thing here is there were only about a half dozen people pinged for this.
And you
So-
had 4 answers.
Yeah, I'm asking a question which I'm, fairly sure the system will be able to route reasonably well, and part of that is sort of learning, the fact that longer questions are better, right? If you give a second sentence to your question, it will almost always get you more answers, better answers, faster answers.
it's
And
easier
the reason
to
is
answer,
because
yeah.
it's easier for a human being to answer, which, by the way, is almost exactly the opposite as any sort of static
Yeah.
content database.
Yeah.
Where the more filters you put on what you want, the less
Yeah.
actual
Yeah.
content you get back.
But it
It's
makes sense
because-
that if you have a little more context to give, should give a recommendation.
Exactly.
What's a good restaurant in San Francisco is different than
Exactly.
I'm taking my parents out for their anniversary. What's, they love sushi and Italian. Where should I go?
Exactly.
You're going to get much easier
Think
to
about
answer
how
that.
much
Yeah.
easier and more
Yeah.
satisfying it is for someone on the other end. And that's sort of what we generally say is like, use the golden rule. Ask the question in the same way that you would want to receive a question, with all the detail and all of the context and whatever else you can think of. And you absolutely see it in people's responsiveness and the quality of what they come back with. And again, that's what you lose when you say, you know what, the end goal of all of this is just to get a huge amount of generic, reviews, and then just find different ways to sort of slice and dice that and return it to people. And again, it's not to say that isn't fantastically useful. Not only is it hugely useful, it's a hugely useful thing in complement to this. As soon as I get back a restaurant recommendation, I love going to Yelp and seeing what everyone says about
Taking
it,
the next
and
step.
seeing
Yeah.
what their store hours
Which is
are
why
and
Yelp
everything
should
else.
be paying you to get their stuff on there.
We may talk
Well,
about
or we should be paying Yelp to make our answers that
Right.
much better. In any event,
I'd start the discussions with
it's
they should
hugely
be paying
complementary.
you and go from there. But
There you go.
So I guess one
You
way to kind of keep, it's just kind of a new paradigm to kind of focus on what would work and what wouldn't work, is to really think about the answering experience, because that's what made us certain we wanted to build Aardvark. When we were trying these different prototypes that were similar, we found answerers were extremely responsive when we send them a little IM saying, "Hey, you there? A friend of Max Ventilla has a question about kiteboarding." People love to be called upon at the moment when somebody has a need right then that they can help
plus,
with.
if people answer quickly, I assume you tend to go back to them.
Yeah, and we favor people who are responsive and answering. And so it's that moment. It's the same way when somebody introduces you to a party to a friend who needs a hand. You're like, "Oh, I know all about that. I can just help you." So all of our decisions are kind of driven by that experience. And you say, okay, what would preserve that experience? And if I say, well, it's a different thing than if I'm posting a static review on a site. It's much more like I'm helping somebody live in the moment.
Have you ever thought about paying people, like giving them, say, those Facebook credits or something, something that they can actually use?
In a sense, but we
You don't want to
it's the magical it's really like the human experience that we want to drive it. For instance, we don't want a point system or a reputation system to say you're the best answerer.
Right.
Instead, so what those are really useful for is for the flood of user-generated content to try to distinguish, to have some authority for some and not others. But we found there's another dimension for dealing with content, which is if you're just having a one-on-one conversation with somebody in the moment, you tell them the truth, you're honest with them, and there's this type of intimacy that comes along with that.
Yeah.
So that's how we approach the issue. Instead of saying, hey, for that subset of you that can spend 10 hours a day on an answer site and rack up your points, that's a very different audience. And when I ask a question, I don't want an answer necessarily from that kind of audience. It might be good for some things, but usually I want somebody in my network who's not spending their days kind of just publishing web content, but they're going about their affairs. We catch them at a convenient moment and they answer, if they want to.
And the final dimension too is that referrals really complement the routing that Aardvark does. So I probably answer as many questions as I refer to other people that get answered. And this is a channel in which referring questions feels very natural.
Yeah.
If you sent me a direct email, asking me, whatever, you're going back to Hawaii for the lobby, like what are places that are worth checking out if you stay for a few extra days?
Yeah.
Be like, you know what? I've been to Hawaii twice, but my buddy lived there for 6 years, on the Big Island. I'm going to email it to him. Mm-hmm. And here, because it's coming directly to you, because you know that you've been selected, it's a small number of individuals. It's not like put on a web page for anyone to see. We actually do find that people will refer the question on to someone else, and it just points to the fact that there are very different motivations here going on than, I want to get paid for it, I want to get points for it, or like this is actually going to be my full-time activity. What we like about Aardvark is that it doesn't have to be like something that you're going back to this website on a regular basis and it's like one of the major things you do. It just fits pretty seamlessly in your day-to-day interactions over IM or email or Twitter in this case.
Yeah, on that side, a big theme to us is, although there's a lot of, as we talked about, there's a lot of complexity in the technology for how it kind of figures out the routing in all these situations. From the point of view of the user, it's supposed to be just dead simple. Like, you type a question just like you're sending it to a friend, except it goes to Aardvark and he finds the right person to answer. So that simplicity is really important to us, and we want to kind of keep that. Oh, you just interact with it like you would a contact. So it's closer to a telephone than it is to a website.
What is your most popular interface?
I am by far.
I am by far. What's second?
Yeah.
Email?
Yeah, I think email comes in second now.
Okay. All right. Great. So, anything else worth talking about right now on video? Any big announcements?
That's most of it. Well, there's a lot of stuff coming down the pipe.
Like what?
We're actively developing.
Like what? This part will be off record.
This part will be off record. Well, since it's off record, the iPhone thing is going to be a big thing, which we're not talking about.
At all.
People know it's in the
Right.
air, but we're not going to give any time frame for that kind of thing now.
All right. So when do you think that'll launch?
Exactly right.
Is there a problem with just push notification and sort of background apps and that kind of stuff, or is it literally just
Push notifications out in iPhone 3.0. I mean, so
and you
so that's all
working
present.
fine?
It all works well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, that was certainly one of the things we were excited about
Huge difference.
coming out with the app this year to be able to use that functionality.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally fundamental to what we're trying to do. And the other thing that's exciting is just how much that platform has taken off, and the fact that it is totally natural for people to install an iPhone app and to be using it on a regular basis. It's not like the niche thing that a few techies with the iPhone are doing.
Are you guys? Do you wear these T-shirts with the tiny Aardvark logo? Do you wear these every day, like the whole office, or just when you go out for meetings?
All right, so since again we're clearly off the record.
Definitely, yeah.
My sister, she's an animal psychologist, and she designed this logo. So I wear this all the time. It's a little Aardvark.
Is an animal psychologist
Particularly qualified to design Aardvark logos? I think so.
Is there something on the back?
The T-shirt?
Yeah.
No, it's
Absolutely
blank.
nothing. It's
Yeah.
just very, very small.
It's
It's
such
a blank
a
slate
small.
for your imagination.
Yeah, there's some things going on. Yeah. So, okay.
That's what's going on.
I got no other
yes,
questions.
I do wear it every day.
Really? The same? I mean, you have
I
multiple
have
shirts.
like
Yeah.
a shelf full of these shirts, and I really do wear it every day.
Really?
But yeah, you'd be hard pressed to find me not wearing this T-shirt. On the weekends, I don't wear it.
Right.
But during the week, I wear it.
Oh wow! I think I was filming your chin there at the end. I always get criticized for my camera work, which is non-existent. All right, so there's absolutely no major announcements. We're doing Twitter, but here at the end of the video, nothing like super juicy. Like, oh, and by the way, Google just acquired us, or
Well,
we just raised another round of funding at a $500 million valuation, or
well, that wouldn't be newsworthy.
just a slow and steady building the business, listening to your users.
There's some really exciting integrations coming out with a bunch of different services because we sit on top of all these services, but that stuff.
We have Facebook now. We've got Twitter.
I think by process of elimination, you're going to be able to like them go down. Yeah. So, but we want to sit on top of all the social networks and,
All of them.
and the remaining IMOs.
Okay. And I'm sorry, iPhone, would it be, are we thinking this year? I mean, you don't want to say when. You may not even know exactly what. We're definitely thinking.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much, guys.
Great.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Mike. It's great talking to you. I really love your thoughts on these ideas. Push back in the different areas. Really interesting.
And TechCrunch is by far your favorite blog?
That's exactly what I meant to say.
Yeah. You have been to TechCrunch, right?
What's the URL for that again?
Yeah.